Fishing two rods at the same time gives you a lot more flexibility. Well, these two rods here, it enables you to cast one short and then one long. We've got one literally in front of a little reef here, about 30 metres away, and the other one I put out as far as I can, which for me is about, I always say 100 metres. I really should measure it, but the point being, you get it out at different distances, see if the fish are feeding in that area, and then you've got the option, if the fish are feeding in one particular area, you can put both baits there. Lovely conditions, isn't it? So for example, if you look here, we're using braid straight through. This has pros and cons. You don't need to attach a leader on here, which can sometimes snag and give you problems. It's just easy, just straight on and fish. You have a direct line through to the fish, and if you're using 15-pound braid, yes, you can feel all the bites and the nicks on it, but the other thing is, you know, if sometimes if the fish feels that resistance, it can put them off the more fussy feeders. Monofilament line onto a tapered leader, and that's actually our next tip, is to use a tapered leader when you're using monofilament, or if you're using braid from the shore, 15 to 18-pound. I really do recommend using the tapered leader. This one here goes from 18 pounds in strength to 70 pound, and that actually equates to a 0.38mm line here, and it just makes things so much easier, makes the cast smoother, means that you don't get big bits of weed running up the line and stopping on the stop knots. Altogether, it's the way to go. I'm going to put that on the reel here. I do like this Daiwa Sensor Surf. Slightly better than the Asso for the same price. You can see there's a lip on the end of the spool, and you don't want to fill it so it's right on the edge, because then it tends to spool over, you know, when you've got it in the box or just setting up. But you don't want it so deep that it sort of snatches on there. You can, if you look at tournament casters, they'll fill it right to the edge, but here our game is to actually catch fish. Practicality on the beach. These tips are also a reminder to myself, because I think, you know, these are things I often get wrong, and you just need a little reminder now and then, a little kick up the backside maybe, and that's especially true of organisation. You're really going to help your beach fishing if you've got everything organised. I've actually put a link underneath to a PDF checklist. You can laminate it if you want, but there's a link to all the things that I need to remember when I'm going fishing. It's a little bit different when you're filming, there's a few added things, but I just use that checklist, because if you forget something like your clippers for the line and you end up biting it with your teeth, you haven't got a spare reel, it could ruin a day's fishing. PDF of things in order of importance, so you can tick those off before you go beach fishing. So it's just to slow everything down. You make mistakes when you rush. It really is a message for me as well. I'm exactly the same. As soon as I come to a venue, I've got to get going, I've got to set up. Other people might be catching fish. Slow down. You do it, I'm going to try and do it more as well. Just tying on a leader knot to this, one of those tapered leaders, and rushing something like this is really going to put you back. If you're in any doubt, tuck yourself out of the wind. We've got really good conditions today. The wind's off the land. That helps our comfort and the casting. As soon as you tie any knots, slow down. Don't be in a rush to get them. Sometimes even worth doing a few practice casts without your rig and without the bait on, just to bed that line down, particularly with a new reel. So I think I'll do that, a few practice casts, see what this reel's like. Next up, bit of bait presentation. Bait presentation is really important, particularly with fiddly fish. I've lost lots of black bream over the years, used to fish up in North Wales, till I figured out that it really was accurate bait presentation that caught the fish. So this here is a 2-hook cascade rig. 2 different types of worms as well. Probably laughing at the size of my worms. This one is a salted lug from Wales, really long, you know, it's almost a foot long. And these are the little Sussex ones. They're a little bit smaller at the moment because the tides are short, and when I mean short tides I mean like a neap tide, where the tide doesn't go up very far or go out very far. All I'm doing here is putting that point through, threading that worm down onto the hook like that, and then you can just take that bit off so it sits on there. There should be no real need, if the worms are in good condition, to use the bait elastic on there. And then on this other hook, I'm going to do something different again. This here is a peeler crab. It's a normal shore crab, but there is a state in the year in spring where they peel, and if you peel back the skin you can see that this is a lovely bit of meat in here, and although that's been frozen, you can see here it's got like a yellowish tint to it. You can use the meat that's in the claws or in the legs, and for a hook that size, those sort of size 2 and size 4, we cut these in half, just use the juicy bits and wrap those on with that bait elastic. You can use them whole. You can get big Devon peelers as well, twice the size of this, you put on whole for bass, but for now we'll just cut this through. Don't really need the lung bit there, but you do want that juicy bit, so it's a little bit fiddly this. And with the squid as well, you do need to have a hook point exposed. A lot of the time, a mistake, certainly something I've done in the past, is mask that hook point, and it can slip down over the hook point as well. Before we do, we make sure that it's clipped on. It's a little clip. Retrieve this in. Do you know what's done that? The twist there, all the bait gone. It's a spider crab, I think, just telling me off for having a rusty hook. So another quick tip, and I'm definitely guilty of messing this up a lot. Watch the rod tips, particularly with a species like bass. You're only going to get a little 30-second window to pick up the bait at times. So people spend all this money on rods, reels, all the tackle, and they want to know where the mark is to fish, but they won't invest any time in learning to cast. So again, I'm no casting instructor, and I'll take little improvements all the time, but just being able to be accurate or distance cast at times. And you need to have a little bit of a variety with your casting. Somewhere like here we can use an off the ground cast and it'll fly out, or a little half pendulum that I like. But if you're fishing up against steep banks or rock marks and things like that, you need to be able to cast with that in mind. So yeah, casting we can all do with some improvement. I know I can. Groins might not be relevant to some of you fishing other non-beach marks, but it's really important how you fish in and around them, because you can pick up fish at the end of groins, on the lee side of the groins. The waves at the end of a groin can really dig out little banks and deep pools, so they can be worth fishing around. However, you need to know the direction of the tide, and if the tide, for example, today is running, this is east for us and this is west, it's running east to west. So if I was to cast here, say, the line would drag across that groin, so you need to be fishing to clear the groin, either at massive distance all the way out, or fishing down tide of that groin. So don't be scared of them. Obviously if you pick up a fish and it runs towards the groin, you've got another snag hazard. But I really think it's a good tip to know your groins, don't be afraid of them, and pick the right tide and the right side of the groin. What you can do, of course, or what we've done a little bit today actually, we've got a groin there, and I'm trying to put a bait actually here. This is rocks and reefs here. I don't know if you can see that into the light, but there is a big reef here, and I'm just hitting a point here which has cleared the length of this groin.